Youngpreneurs Podcast, episode number 123, with your host, Victor Ahipenny. What's up, world? Another day, another podcast, and I'm super stoked that you have decided to spend your time with me. You will not regret it, as today I've got Jess Ostroff from Don't Panic Management, and she is the founder and director of Calm at Don't Panic Management, which is a new virtual executive and marketing assistant agency that's designed to help badass entrepreneurs like yourself and executives get shit done so you can focus on your bigger ideas. And we delve into how this all came about, what kind of tequila she likes, and how she has networked and set up the systems and grown Don't Panic Management. This was pretty cool because I did this interview, then about a week later I was listening to a book called Content Inc. And then her name got mentioned in it, which was pretty cool because it's by one of the biggest content writers and producers in the world, and it was pretty cool that her name kind of popped in, and I was like, oh wow, that's awesome that some more young entrepreneurs are getting the props that they deserve. So if you enjoy this episode, make sure you want to reach out to Jess. You can do that. We've got all the links at our homepage, passiveincomeyoung.com/EP123, and you can also grab some cool resources to get your first business started online. Jump over to iTunes, leave us a rating and a review, and don't forget to join our ever-growing group on Facebook, our community, our tribe of young entrepreneurs. Just search Young Entrepreneur Mastermind in Facebook and we will see you in there. So grab a pen, paper, and get ready to be wowed by Jess.
You're listening to the Youngpreneurs Podcast, the number one resource online for under 35-year-olds, where we chat twice a week to the most inspiring entrepreneurs in the world. We have it all. If you're looking for inspiration, guidance, or actionable tips to help you transition from that job into a business, or if you're ready to take that business to a whole new level, then this is the place to be. Get ready to live life on your own terms.
Hey Youngpreneurs, welcome to another episode of the Youngpreneurs Podcast. Today I've got Jess Ostroff, and she's the CEO and director of Calm at Don't Panic Management, and the director of Calm. We hear CEO, we hear COO, but I love the director of Calm. It just sounds like a super cool title, and I think we're gonna have an amazing interview. And I won't explain too much about what Don't Panic Management is, because I think I won't give it justice in the sense of, I could read this bio that I've got, but I don't think I'll give it justice because it sounds like a pretty exciting company. So first off, welcome to the show, Jess.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's my pleasure, and I'd just love to start off before we get into Don't Panic Management. I'd love to hear your story into entrepreneurship. Like, was it always something that was on the cards? Were you always this, were you the lemonade stand girl from the young age, or was it influence from parents, or was it something that you just progressively grew into?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I was pretty shy growing up, and I think I was one of those kids who was sort of always taking things in, listening and looking around and seeing what everybody was doing, and I really enjoyed spending time alone. I was an only child, and I didn't love being around other people that much when I was growing up. And at one point, I realized that people are good, and it's okay to spend time with them. And so I remember sort of this turning point for me. I think I was in 6th grade, just deciding to be a little bit more social, a little bit more open to making friends and learning more about people. And so I kind of turned myself outward instead of being inward all of that time. And it was one of the better things I think I've done in my whole life, because the relationships I've made have helped me be just a happier person, and have also been what has built my business. So once I started getting more relationships focused, I realized that going into business would be a good way for me. Now I'm in high school and doing all these things. I was playing 3 varsity sports. I was taking 2 different languages, and I was also doing music and basically doing anything I possibly could to try and figure that out, right? Like, what do I want to do? So I'm going to try everything so that I can, at least figure out maybe what I don't want to do. And in all that time, I had some amazing opportunities, especially through language and even through the band, where we got to travel around the country and around the world. And I loved that. I loved traveling. I loved meeting new people and learning about new cultures. And I decided, well, I think I just want to make money and travel. And that's about as far as I got when it came to, applying to colleges and thinking about what I wanted to do. So that's why I applied to go to business school and started. Marketing seemed like a natural fit given the communication side of things and the more creative side of things. I was decent with numbers, but not very interested in them. I liked the other side of business, the connection element and the creative element. So I did marketing. I also had joined an entrepreneurship club, mostly because my roommate joined. I didn't really know, how I would fit in. I never thought it was creative enough to start my own business or even had, that sort of ambition, really. I thought that was for a different breed of people at the time. And so, I went through, I did well, I graduated. I didn't want to go into the corporate side of things. That's the biggest thing I learned from working internships and hanging out with a lot of really, really ambitious people in college, was that they were interested in making a lot of money, but working a lot of hours and not really having a life outside of their job. And I just knew that that was not the path I wanted to take. I couldn't think of any scenario in which money would outweigh my own freedom and my own happiness. So I actually did a nonprofit. It's called AmeriCorps. It's like Peace Corps, but for America. And I did that in LA. I had been living in New York and moved to California and did a year where I was teaching in a school. I was teaching math and science and running small group tutoring programs and after school programs. And I was really interested in the nonprofit sector at that point, helping other people, especially kids. But of course, quickly got into the nonprofit world after I graduated from that program and realized just how disorganized everything was. And coming from a really strict business school, I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand this lack of organization, and there was way too much bureaucracy for all the good that I felt like some of these organizations were trying to do. They were getting really bogged down by the nitty-gritty and the approvals process, and it was just a disaster. So that's kind of when I started to think, hey, you know what, I can do this better. I'm going to go off on my own. And so it's sort of out of a frustration, I would say, that I started becoming an entrepreneur.
That's awesome, because it's often out of frustration or seeing the problem that you're having and that others are having, that you think there might be a solution to it. Go back a couple of steps when you were at through your journey and up until where you are now. How have you felt business school has helped? Like, do you think was it just part of your journey? Like, you're like, yeah, I did university, that was cool, or has a lot of the skills overlapped into the business world? Because I know, and like you were saying, you thought, oh yeah, I might, I want to make money and travel, and that'll be sweet. So business school might be the way to go. And a lot of people think that, oh yeah, I'll get a business out of the end of business school, but it often shapes you into a corporate role, and it's kind of the opposite of the expectations you may have as a 16, 17, 18-year-old.
Right.
So what were your experiences with it?
Well, I really love that question, because a lot of people that I know that have gone on to become entrepreneurs never did go to business school, never really had a business education. And then they think, well, I'm really good at this or that, so I'm going to start a business where I'm just doing that. So the difference, I think, between my university, I went to New York University, is that the marketing program especially was focused on organizational communications. So basic things, even just like crafting a really great email or cover letter or resume, but also working in teams and working with people that you may not know or like. And, for me, that was really a pain. I hated it in the beginning. I hated being placed into a group of people that I didn't necessarily get along with. But now, being in the business world especially, I mean, that's what it's all about. It's working together to build something that's bigger than yourself, and not only being able to evaluate what each other's core competencies are and how they can piece together to make the best possible outcome, but also presenting that product or that strategy idea or whatever it is to a group. So we had to, spend weeks or months or however long it was putting a presentation together and making it cohesive and coherent enough that someone else could understand what we were doing. And that's really, that's the core of all communications, but especially when you're doing marketing communications, you need to not only understand things yourself, but be able to create things in a way that your audience is going to understand. So more and more over the years, I think that part in particular was really, really helpful, but also just the work ethic that I learned from being placed on these really hard projects and really hard deadlines. I didn't even know that missing a deadline was an option. And, working with people now, it's like, you might submit a project and have this whole timeline, and then next thing you know, it's a week later and you haven't received what you thought you were going to receive. And it blows my mind sometimes the way people work and don't work and work different ways. And one of the successes I've found in my business is that when we promise a deadline, we reach the deadline. And as simple as it sounded to me, especially, it's sort of an anomaly with some of these service providers, which is sad, but true. So I definitely think that just having the work ethic, the communications skills are really, really important for any business.
Yeah, I've got a friend and his business is web dev and software development, and they're literally their catchphrase is developers who reply to emails, hit deadlines and aren't shit.
Yep.
But they always
developers
find
are notorious for missing deadlines.
Yeah, and and people can resonate as soon as they read it. People who have never used developers before are like, oh yeah, I don't really get what you're talking about. Like, it's just a normal thing of life that people hit deadlines and do their job,
right.
But then they use one or two or three, or they've used multiple in their time. They see his one and they're like, oh, if you're ballsy enough to put that as your slogan, you must be able to back it up.
Right.
And they get the right clientele from it as well. They get ones that aren't offended by it and are happy to see it. But
yeah,
I think that's super cool. Your experiences at business school. Let's talk about Don't Panic Management.
Yeah.
Where did, you obviously said where it kind of came from. You thought you could do it better, but what is it that you do better?
Well, at the time, so when I first started, I was really just, as I said, unhappy in the job that I was in and trying to find ways to get out of it. And I had just joined Twitter. I was on, some of the other social media platforms before that, but Twitter was relatively new at the time. And I had a client, he became a client. Yeah, he was actually my boss when I was an intern. And I will say internships were some of the best things I got through business school as well, because that opportunity of learning in a real environment without all the pressure of having that be your actual job was amazing. So one of these internships when I was in university was with an advertising agency, and the CEO president had actually left the agency, sold the agency, and gone off on his own. And he was one of the I had kept in touch with him via email a little bit, but he was one of the first people I followed on Twitter. And I think I followed like maybe 5 people. One of them was like, New York Times, him, and a couple other friends. And so I saw everybody's tweets. And one of his was, I'm looking for a virtual assistant. If anyone knows anyone, send them my way. Of course, I didn't know what that was. I was sort of living under a nonprofit education rock at the time. But I looked it up and I said, oh, it's really just an executive assistant, but who gets to work from wherever. That sounds great. I'm really organized. I have my shit together. I can do this. So I sent him a tweet and I said, I'm going to email you. And I found the email recently. Actually, it's really funny because I think I put like 7 reasons why you should hire me. And one of them was, we both love tequila. So, we'll have a good time together. He's a big tequila fan. And so I think, partly because he had worked with me before and trusted me and knew my work ethic. That's part of why I got hired, but I also like to think that was my amazing cover letter email.
Was it like a clickbait email? Like
right.
the subject line was the 7 reasons
totally.
You need to hire me.
You won't before clickbait even existed. So
you won't believe number 6.
Right. Exactly. You won't believe all the tequila. Yeah, totally. So that was it. And I was still working at my full-time job, but I was able to do the 10 hours. I think it was 10 hours a week that I started with him. And I was able to do that, when I got home from work or during my lunch break. It was all kind of online stuff. So I loved it. There were cut and dry assignments, due dates. I could get them done and I could get paid for it. And I said, well, it seems like there's a market for this. It was also, like I said, 2009, which in 2008 in the States was when the economy crashed and people were continuing to get laid off and having to start their own businesses really out of necessity because they couldn't get a job anywhere else. So there was this increase in entrepreneurship. I don't have any hard data on that, but I'm pretty sure that, that was happening. And it was sort of a right time, right place situation for me. I was able to get more clients from word of mouth from him and a couple other people that I was working with, and was able to build up a big enough client base. It was literally like as soon as I was able to pay my rent with client work, I quit my job. I didn't really care if I was able to eat or anything else. I just had to get out of that job. So, I just kind of took the leap at that point and figured, worst case scenario, I've worked in restaurants before. I worked in all kinds of service industries like that. I could just go back to that if I needed to. I had nothing to lose by trying it on my own. And pretty quickly, it was within about 18 months that I had so much work that I had to start hiring help through other freelancers and contractors. And so I said, you know what, maybe there really is something here. I'm going to incorporate as a business instead of just being like Jess Ostroff by myself. So that was in 2011. I started Don't Panic Management, and it's just completely taken off. Both, we've gotten a lot more clients, of course, but also from the side of the people who want to work for Don't Panic, there's a real opportunity for, moms or actors or, people who do other things but also want to use their brain and stay in the workforce without having to go to an office every day or work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. So still earn somewhat of a living, sort of on their own terms, and doing work that makes them feel useful and that they're actually helping someone, because that's part of our whole mission, is really helping other entrepreneurs, helping other business owners grow and help them make an impact.
It's so awesome, and I love your resourcefulness when you said, "Yeah, I've worked in restaurants before, and I've done this and that," because a lot of people they feel like if they're not doing their entrepreneurial passion, that it's a failure. Like, oh no, I couldn't. And like nowadays, you get like Uber, and you can just literally have a job in like 2 days time,
right?
Going through that, you can get a job in a restaurant, you can do whatever, right. And you're still going to have the time. That's what I just wanted to chat with you about. When you quit your job and went into this, what was the biggest impact of having those extra 40 hours a week? Was that like life changing for you?
Oh, man. Well, the first thing I did was, it was right around my birthday, actually, that it all happened. The first thing I did was I drove up to San Francisco because I had 2 really good friends there, and I was like, I'm out of here. It was like this big exit. And my employer, I remember, was so pissed because they thought they were going to have me for years, and that I was going to really grow this program. And I was like, I'm sorry. I can't do this. You can't keep me here. I'm out. I gave my 2 weeks or whatever, but they wanted more than that. And I drove to San Francisco. I was terrified. I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, but like I said, I never felt like, I never felt like I didn't have anything to fall back on.
Yeah.
And I think, and I agree with you that, some people do think it's a failure, but it's not. I mean, you can learn things from everywhere. And that's what I kept thinking about too. It's like, well, you never know. And I take that into my life as a whole. I never know who I'm going to meet and where I'm going to meet them. And just because I don't know them or don't know anything about them doesn't mean that they may not become a part of my life or a part of my business at some point down the line. So you kind of have to just always be open with your eyes and ears, but also with your heart, to new experiences and new opportunities. And I think that's another thing that makes a great entrepreneur is seeing opportunities in everything and not just having a narrow view of what you think is going to turn into something valuable. So, I think it was also, again, it was like a year out of college, or, by the time I started the business, I was 2 or 3 years out of college. So I didn't really have much to lose. I didn't have a family or a mortgage or anything like that. I was moving around a lot, which was another thing I always wanted. I wanted to have the freedom to live anywhere and work my own hours. It just felt amazing. I mean, it's still, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, wow, I could do anything today. I mean, really, I still have client deadlines and deliverables and things, but really, I could do anything. And I take it for granted sometimes, but that's what I always wanted. I didn't really care what the work was that I did as long as I had that feeling of being free.
Yeah. And with your business, obviously word of mouth works for so long. Is that still like the main basis of recruitment, or like jobs coming your way, or have you set up some marketing to kind of facilitate that now?
Yeah, at this point, we have so many great, some of the clients that we have today have been clients since that first day, that 2009, 2010, and they're just really such advocates for us. So it still is a lot of word of mouth, but it's also, the nature of some of the inbound marketing stuff that I've done, not exactly intentional, but, I haven't ever, well, we do now have a marketing strategy, but in the past we never really had a marketing strategy because we didn't need it. But, these kinds of things where I'm talking to you on your podcast, or I'm writing blog posts for other publications, but, it's not just that, it's going to events, sitting down and having a beer with people. One of my colleagues jokes with me when she says to other people, she's like, Jess is the kind of person that you could sit at a bar with and have 3 drinks with, and then you're a client. And it's like, because we make those personal connections, and that's what my business is all about. Is there's a level of trust in this sort of relationship that really needs to be established either before we even start the conversation or pretty quickly after we start working together. And that's why I think that the word of mouth and the referrals that we've gotten have been really successful, because people are afraid to let things go. I mean, when you have an executive assistant, that person can be your right hand, knows everything about you, knows all of your personal, intimate details, and that's not something you take lightly. You want to make sure you have someone that you really trust, or that someone really trusts. And so that, I think, is why that sort of word of mouth approach has really worked for us. But of course, people are going to look you up. People are going to do all their online investigating. And I wanted to make sure that when they search my name, when they search my company name, that the content that we have out there is really good. So we're now getting ready to relaunch the website. We're doing a rebrand. And with that is coming some more intentional, outbound marketing efforts. But the first 5 years, I would say, has really been the goodness of the people that we've worked with.
It's so awesome. What's a normal day for you, if there is such a thing, apart from tequila and beers?
It sounds like all I do, right?
If it is, can I can help you out whenever you need.
Awesome. That sounds great. Yeah. I have a couple. I would say I have 2 different days. I try to lump my meetings together as much as possible. So some days I'm like in meetings all day. And then other days I try to kind of just make them be in the mornings so that I have the afternoons free to work on things. And so the days that I have a lot of meetings, I don't get a lot of business stuff done. I'm mostly just answering emails, working with my team if they have any questions, paying attention to some deliverables that I have. I for the most part, I split my time about in half between client work and, business development work. And I think it's important for me as the owner, a lot of CEOs, owners, they really don't touch the work of the business at all. But I think it's really important for me to still be in the weeds with a lot of this stuff because, like I said, I'm the primary business developer. So I need to know what work we're doing every day. We also have a daily, what we call stand up. It's like a scrum sort of thing, except we're all virtual, so we don't actually stand up together. Yeah. But, a quick daily meeting with my full-time team where we talk about any issues, questions, what we're working on, sort of for accountability, but also to make sure that things are moving forward and moving quickly, because sometimes what we started to notice, as we started growing, was that there were all these long email chains and these little, discussions on our project management tool that really probably could have been answered in a 2-minute conversation. So having that daily time where we all get together and it's like, okay, we may have 10 things to discuss or we may have one, but either way, we're touching every day. We're making sure that we're all on the same page. And if we need to sidebar, have a bigger conversation about something else, we'll just schedule a separate meeting for that. So that's really nice, and that's at 11 a.m. every morning. And then I usually try to keep Friday, especially Friday afternoons, as clear as possible. I always, this is a fun little game I play every week where I say, okay, I'm going to front load my weekend. I'm going to try to take Friday off. It never works, but it does mean that Friday does end up being usually a lighter day for me, which is really what I need by the end of the week. Because, as you probably know, as entrepreneurs really work 24/7. Yeah. Even if you're not working, you're working. So, yep. Having a day at the end of the week where I can, leave a little early, get outside, do something, or just, have a lighter workload, so my brain just starts to be really fried at the end of the week. So, but yeah, I would say I try to get my meetings out of the way in the morning and then have the afternoon to actually spend quality time working on business stuff.
Cool. So just going into the last few questions, a bit more personal. What if you're on your deathbed, you're 150, you're looking back, advances in medical technology, mm-hmm. And you're looking back. What does success look like to you?
Oh man, I really have been thinking a lot about this lately, because when I started the business, I never thought that I could make a difference in someone's life. And really, the reason I started working in nonprofits was because I did care about making a difference. And when I started getting more in the weeds with growing this company, I was like, oh man, I don't even have time to volunteer. I'm not doing the sorts of things that I used to do. More often, I was just writing a check. I still value giving back, but for a while, I felt like I was just writing checks. And I think that, that's good, to give money to these organizations. But I wanted to do more. I wanted to actually help people's lives. And now I'm finally feeling again like I am with the business because, like I said, not only giving entrepreneurs a way to grow and enjoy their own best life, which might mean, playing golf in the middle of the day on a Wednesday, while also, making the money they need to support their families, but also the people that work for Don't Panic. Like I said, a lot of them are mothers, a lot of them are fathers, people who have lives, but who want to be able to work and still feel fulfilled. So I guess when I look back on what I would really want to, the impact I really want to make on the world is changing the face of virtual work. There's a lot of negative stigma around virtual assistants in general, and I want to change that bias against virtual assistants and make it more of a norm and give more people, as many people as possible, the opportunity to work for us or with us. And I think if I can, even touch, 3 or 4 people's lives that way in a positive way, I will feel successful.
That's awesome. It was funny you're saying about the giving back and the opportunity. I was listening to a show the other day and they're talking about Bill Gates, mm-hmm. and the whole cycle that he's been on. They're like, first off, he he learned a bit of software and then he stole stuff, and then he tried to sue every state in the US basically, and he was like
Really?
yeah, apparently, and he's like public enemy number one, like because they were doing whatever, and he just came at like majority of the states, and in any company that decided to mess with him, and he was like, I'm going to stamp my authority, and then he was one of the biggest influences in the in the software game, and going forward, and then he said, but if you ask any 15-year-old now who Bill Gates is, say in 10 years time, they're like, oh, he's the guy trying to, provide clean drinking, like, because they don't really know that whole side of things.
Right.
Like, oh, that's the guy who's making a change and trying to, rid the world of disease and rid the world of, dirty drinking water and all these other things. And they said, sometimes you have to, to be able to give back on a scale, you've still got to make your dent in other ways. Which I mean, it sounds like you're going to be able to do some of the things that excite you throughout your work. But I know it's something that a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space battle with. It's like,
right.
I want to do 50 things to give back, but I've got to do one thing to give back to myself first.
Right. Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. It's like you wanna live your best life, but you also want to leave a legacy. And everyone does that in different ways. But it's a big question.
It's the stuff that keeps you up at night.
Yeah.
Last couple of questions. Books. What would be a resource or a book that you would recommend to others out there listening who are maybe going down the same path or are looking to get started? What's something that's influenced you?
I haven't read a lot of tactical business books. I kind of just wing it. I think, the way to do things is to just try them and see what works. But as far as, for me, I was having this big existential question based very similar to the question you were just asking, like, what do I want my legacy to be? What do I really care about? What purpose do I have kind of in this world? And, one of the books that I was recommended at the time was called Body of Work by Pam Slim. And Pam is just amazing. She talks a lot about breaking out of the cubicle and doing what you were meant to do. And Body of Work is, it's got a lot of that kind of advice, but it also has a lot of like hands-on sort of worksheet type activities that you can do to really narrow down what are the threads and the pieces in your life that you care most about, and how can you put those all together to either build a business or do something that will fulfill you in a deep way. And that's I'm still getting through it. I mean, it's one of those books that you could take a year, to get through. You could read it quickly. It's not long, but the exercises that she has in there are pretty deep and are the kinds of things that can evolve over time.
Yeah, and constantly changes as you change. So we'll link all of that at passiveincomeyoung.com. But final question, 2 years' time, what are you doing and where are you doing it?
Oh, man. Well, my goals right now are to be writing, speaking, and teaching more. So taking everything that I've learned from my time and everything specific to this niche and putting it out to more people. So I have a big gig coming up next month in Florida, and then I'm doing a workshop in California in September, and I hope to be doing more of that. I don't want to be one of those people that spends 300 days on the road, but I'd like to be doing, 2 or 3 of those sorts of things per month, and also, like I said, reaching more people in a way that more the one-to-many approach. Right now, I do a lot of training, but it's internal, and I want to be able to get that education out to more people. So, in addition to the speaking and the workshops that I'm putting together, we're also working on a course for people who aspire to be a virtual assistant can take, and, it's not crazy expensive, and it's just, something that can help you really learn how to do what we do really well and efficiently, and, again, to just help as many people as possible.
Oh, wicked. So I look first off, I'd just love to thank you for jumping on today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'd just like to welcome you to the Youngpreneurs family. If people want to find out a bit more about Don't Panic Management or about you, or where can they go and what can they do?
Yeah, I'm everywhere. My name is Jess Ostroff. If you just search that in every network, that's usually my username on every social network. Don't Panic is Don't Panic MGMT, short for management.com. There is another Don't Panic Management that's like a theater company or something, and they own the URL with Don't Panic Management all spelled out. So we're still working on trying to get that from them. But we will have a new website going up around the time of my speech on August 20th, and you can find me most social networks at Jess Ostroff.
Cool. Well, we'll link all of that, as I said, at passiveincomeyoung.com. But again, appreciate your time a lot and look forward to catching up in a couple of years' time and seeing how everything's unfolded.
That would be great. Thank you so much, and we'll toast to that.
Thanks for listening to the Youngpreneurs podcast. This was proudly brought to you by the Podcast Institute, the #1 training resource to take your business from chasing leads to leads chasing you, and from an absolute amateur to a full-blown authority. If you're looking to take your business to the next level, then a podcast is the obvious answer. You can get national and global exposure in a very fast time, and it's just exactly what I've done with this podcast. So if you want to find out more, get a checklist on how you can get started for under $60, and to find out more through a small training video that I've prepared for you all, then please check out passiveincomeyoung.com/podcast training.